Paula Brown of Americans for Homeopathy Choice. I'm really excited to be here. You guys, we have such an incredible show planned for you guys today. We have lovely Anna Cox. She's on the board of the North American Society for Homeopathy, and she has a very interesting scientific background that we're going to kind of give you some context about how she advocates for homeopathy, and we're going to hear some really great stories about advocating for homeopathy. But before I bring her on, and then we also have a gal Beth who's coming on during during our break to talk about why she joined the Bear Pack. But before I bring Anna on, I wanted to let you guys know a couple of housekeeping things. Reminder, we have extended the registration deadline for those of you who are wanting to come to DC. We've extended the deadline all the way till this Saturday. We got a bunch of emails from people saying, look, I really want to come. I just need a little bit more time. Don't raise the prices yet. And so we just want you guys to come so bad that we're going to extend it all the way until Saturday at midnight, just so you know, to give you guys a little bit more time to come. Hello, yes, do say hello in the comments. I love seeing where you guys are coming in from. The second thing I wanted to let you guys know is about our goal during the show and some special giveaways. So first of all, this is our major fundraiser. We're trying to get, every 6 months we do the show and I bring some amazing speakers, and it is our thank you and our offer to try and get some donations into Americans for Homeopathy Choice. And one of the things we're really trying to get is we're trying to get 80 members to join our Bear Pack, hopefully 100, but the minimum we need right now is at least 80 new Bear Pack signups. And we are at 30 Bear Packs right now. And this is the halfway mark. And so we're really needing a little bit, at least 20 or 30 more in the next 24 hours to stay on track. But what's going to happen is, this is so generous. Anna, who is going to be speaking today, has committed to donating an extra $25 for every single person that joins the Bear Pack in the next 24 hours. So be thinking about that. And she's also donating a book. It's called, actually, I just slipped my mind for a second because I'm a little bit nervous every time the show starts. It's called A Vital Force, Women in American Homeopathy, and it's by Ann Taylor Krishman. And we thought this would just be a great book for us during the show because it's about, empowering yourself. And we love hearing about women who empower themselves in American homeopathy history. And you're also going to get a cute little EMF bag that you can put remedies in. Little zippy bag from Coco and Camille. They have an Etsy shop and they love making these cute little remedy bags. And so you're getting those two things. Someone is going to get that from the raffle. But really, especially, we're so excited because Anna is willing to donate $25 for every Bear Pack member that signs up starting now in the next 24 hours. And so that's really, really generous of her. So without further ado, remember that we're trying to get you guys to come to DC. But if you can't come to DC, register to help from home. Go to our website, homeopathychoice.org, and you can click the help from homeopathy on the hill, and you can register to help from home, and that's totally free. And we need more of you guys. We really need that to fill up to get some good things done for those of you who can't come. All right, I'm going to bring in Anna. Thank you for listening to the whole little spiel there. And I've actually gotten to know Anna pretty well. She was one of the first people that I got to meet right when Americans for Homeopathy Choice was a little baby. And we were trying to connect with the broader homeopathy community, and you've been a huge support. You really believe in this movement, right?
I completely believe in this movement. I don't think there's anything more powerful than the consumer, you and moms in particular, because, you educate a mother, you educate the whole family.
That's right.
We are the ones who take care of our family. So
right.
I'm thrilled and in awe of all of you volunteers. It's amazing.
Thank you. That's really sweet. I love to hear that. We have the best consumers in the world are the ones that are using and love homeopathy. So I really appreciate that. So Anna, tell them about how our topic today is, we're calling it story time, self-advocating in a conventional medical world. But I think it's helpful to provide some context. How did you come to advocating for yourself from homeopathy? What was your background, and how did that influence how you got started?
Really good place to start, Paula. Thank you. I mean, I've really enjoyed listening to the number of other people that you have had on the show today or in the last week. And it's interesting how many of you have begun as moms, learning homeopathy for your children with teething and injuries and colds.
Right.
dang, I wish I would have had homeopathy when my kids were little. But I hadn't learned about it. I found homeopathy when I was really faced with a ridiculous, horrible health crisis. My health had been to the point where one idiopathic, meaning no explanation for the disease after another, really led to a life crisis. People thought I was crazy to not be using conventional medicine. But with an oncologist, I laid out research that really took me into the world of physics. And I said, look, the opportunity costs for the care that you're offering are way too high. I need to go explore some of this first, and we'll keep in touch. We'll watch what happens. So I had gone back to medical school and was really going to study biophysics.
Oh.
So in a physics program and nutrition, that was my outlook. And the dean of the school said, I really think that you should look at a variety of modalities and see if you can find some common denominators. That sounds brilliant. Let's do it. But it was in a physics class when I kept questioning all of the machinery that's being used today to look at the body through physics, through a frequency that each tissue resonates to.
There you go. There's two big words, frequency and resonance. We know that that is a big part of homeopathy. And if you don't, you might get a little bit right now. So,
well, it gets deep. So with this idea of frequency and resonance, this concept in the modern study of the body through physics still looks at the body much like a machine. And so I said, wait, there's a problem here. It's like, we know that each person has individuality. It's like a song. Mm-hmm. You have a song, a field, a frequency that maintains the form of you. We might all have the same organs. That's like the same instruments in the orchestra, but they're playing a different song. How do we find that? If we can find that song, that frequency that's this person as a whole, that would be magic to helping them heal, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because they may not like the song they're playing, right?
They might not like how the song's disrupted, right? Yes. It would be like you listening to a song and there's all this background music or all this background noise.
Or it's out of tune or something, yes.
Exactly. And it's corrupting the song. And you know that's not what it's supposed to be. You have all of this static or noise interference. So if we can come back to really canceling that interference and amplifying that song itself on a theoretical basis in physics, we would have the best possible health. So this professor said, you know, Anna, what you're really talking about is this field of homeopathy. And I went, Homie what? And he laid out the principles of homeopathy.
Was he supportive of it or just kind of like neutral, whatever?
He was interesting. He really was into this realm of modern physics, but had come as a herbalist, as a traditional naturopath, that then moved to what we call vitalism, where herbs are used more in a dilution or a tea. So very small amounts, which then leads to low potency homeopathic use, and usually homeopathy applied in a therapeutic way, which brings us to the idea of how a naturopath or herbalist will combine multiple herbs. So he was very in favor of multiple complex remedies because it was like herbalism, that you now would take a group of products that might affect something and cluster them together.
Right.
But he said, oh, no. Homeopaths really don't work that way. They study one substance at a time on a group of people that are relatively healthy so that we could see how that substance is interacting and basically creating static or interruption to those people. And I went, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. But if we looked at that like color, you would have, say, the color yellow being the substance of the energy of whatever self-maintaining thing, a plant, an animal, or a mineral substance. And now you're taking yellow, and instead of like a placebo-controlled trial in a drug where you're only going to try it on this disease that might be represented by red. So we take the drug and we want to see if this red, yellow, red-orange color, if this color yellow can have any effect to making it, to solving the problem. So you're trying it only on one color. Here, homeopaths were taking yellow and trying it on red, on orange, on blue, on violet. So now you knew what the full potential of what yellow would do.
Yes.
It's like, wow, that's brilliant. Because if we had all of that data, then collectively, if we could figure out all these events in a person's life, we might be able to identify that common denominator. It's like, if this is you and different things could interrupt your system, the common denominator has to be you.
Right.
That would be that song I'm looking for.
Yeah. It's like the individualized approach.
Right. It would be maybe one definition. The word constitutional in homeopathy is probably one of the most debated. But if we looked at it from physics, it has to be this energy pattern that maintains the form of you that other things are creating interference patterns for.
It's fantastic.
And that's what
Lori
set
just
me
wrote
on
here. Lori just wrote here, love this explanation. So it's a great way to look at it. But that's what you were saying. Sorry, I interrupted you, but that's what set you on this path of homeopathy. It like the idea, the concept resonated with what you were doing.
It resonated completely. It took my background that was in design and color theory. So here you see the example of color. It was like, wow, we're really looking at frequency and this concept from physics that would more want to describe our beings as holograms and a sort of holographic movie. And that these various events are recorded. Well, when I began to study homeopathy in a classical sense, not just a therapeutic way of, oh, I've got eczema, here's a group of remedies for eczema, or here's arthritis, here's a group of remedies for arthritis. Now it would be, this is you. And something's interrupting, creating this systemic set of symptoms. So can we find this?
And take care of that.
And then amplify your system and watch it unfold. Well, remember, I wasn't in the greatest of health either. So this next part becomes really interesting. The number of homeopaths that you've had on the show, I noticed that many of them hold a CHC accreditation. And that's great. So that's part of how our industry in the last number of years have said, people learning homeopathy, we would use that exam to measure a baseline and let the consumer have an understanding about how much education in homeopathy this person has. But we're going to find in the stories I tell you, they're going to come from a little different angle, a particular angle that goes past the CHC. So the CHC is used as an exam, whether you're practicing homeopathy as an MD or a naturopath or a chiropractor. And then there are those people who are homeopathic specialists. So what's the difference? Don't they have the same credential? There can be a difference. And the difference really comes down to legal laws. Right now, our whole issue is with our access at the federal level, which is controlled by the FDA.
Which is the medicine. The FDA controls the drug and states control, like when you talk to a doctor, they're board certified by your state because the state controls the practitioners.
Exactly. So currently in the United States, and it kind of hit me the other day when I was listening and somebody was looking for a practitioner, I think it was in Illinois. And if we look, I think I have a picture. Can I hold it up?
Yeah.
See this picture? How close can I get it?
Yep, there you go. We can see it. Yep.
The green states are the states where we have laws called safe harbor laws that give homeopaths the right to practice outside of the umbrella of other licensed disciplines. And that is
an entity in and of themselves.
Right. So,
which makes sense if homeopathy is a federally recognized form of drug. Seems like homeopaths should be able to use the only other category of drugs, there's chemical drugs, and then there's homeopathy. There's no other drugs. You got those two.
Well, many of you who are listening have taken study groups or you've read a lot about homeopathy at this point, and you're really aware that the fundamental principles that guide homeopathy are completely different than these other modalities.
Mm-hmm.
So you might take an MD's scope of practice that could include anything that's preventative or curative or treats disease or symptoms of disease, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And that would include homeopathy. But the medical boards, and that can vary also by state, those boards can say, no, 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 no. We don't think homeopathy meets the standards of medicine. It might be in a scope of practice,
Right.
but it doesn't meet a standard. And that physician can be penalized and frankly even have his board association removed, which would then prohibit him from having a license. So why a license? Licenses for various medical disciplines are there because of the inherent risk.
Mm-hmm.
They're using procedures that might puncture the skin to do tests.
Right.
Or x-rays that have damage in themselves,
Mm-hmm.
or surgical procedures, and of course, drugs that carry a risk, a toxicity, side effects, and even doses that are known to be deathly.
Mm-hmm.
So to have those kinds of practices in place, we have licensure around them to
Mm-hmm.
protect the consumer. And yet when it's examined with homeopathy, homeopathy is a language-based medicine.
Mm-hmm.
We don't puncture the skin. Our medicines are, as we are teaching the FDA, inherently safe. You can't have an overdose with a homeopathic medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of having a safe harbor law, it doesn't require licensure because we don't present risk to the public. Interesting.
Very interesting. And how does that, yeah, when does that translate then to, you know, like
advocating?
Yes, for yourself. Yeah, because I'm like, yes, this all makes sense. But, you know, how does it, because I know you're going to tell us that.
Yes. So I was going to start with some other stories that were more personal on advocating. And I want to go back to that, but I'll just give you the quick answer to what you've asked, Paula. So where that becomes important, I'm practicing in the state of California. We're one of those states that have a safe harbor law. Now, the really interesting part of the safe harbor law is that we're mandated to first spend time with our new client, not called a patient, they're called a client. But we spend time with that client to tell them what our education is. What is homeopathy? How does homeopathy differ from the nutritional supplement and care they're using? How does it differ from biomedical medicine and the use of those drugs and trials? So for the first time ever, you'll watch this consumer get an informed position on what they're choosing and allow them to make a choice that then meets their criteria.
So that safe harbor law basically empowers the consumer to really know what they're doing and what, as opposed to kind of just blindly running around,
taking the doctor's advice and you don't have any choice and you don't really understand this is my own.
You don't really know. Yeah, exactly.
I liked your example the other day. You can take any medicine you want as long as it's a biomedical medicine, like the Ford car. You can have any color.
As long as it's black. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So this becomes really important when it comes to advocating. If as a specialist, unencumbered by standards of care in any other umbrella of discipline, I'm not going to be penalized by a board that might not agree with the homeopath's perspective. It allows me to work as an independent teammate, particularly in critical care situations.
So you were saying states that have safe harbor laws allows me to say my homeopath is part of my health team and you can't ignore her.
Exactly. And no medical board can tell me that doesn't meet our standard of care and penalize or remove me. So given that example, I have, and this is probably one of the heaviest examples I was going to give. But as parents, and you're advocating for your child as well as yourself.
Yeah, because that's the scary thing is if you go to the hospital, you feel like you lose all your power.
You feel, oh, you definitely do. Or you need a serious drug or surgery. So I believe that surgery is the most incredible aspect of our biomedical system.
Right.
And we certainly don't want to ignore what that offers us. So I had a family that, talk about really a tragic situation. The baby was born with the sagittal suture of her head fused prematurely.
Oh, because it's supposed to stay open because as their brain develops, it makes room for it and then it seals. So
not only does it is it open in the beginning, but the growth plates on the skull continue to grow until about 5 years old. So with that, when the suture closes and fuses, the bones will not grow anymore. So now the only places that were open on this baby were out the front and out the very back, so that her head was only about 3 inches wide and then really elongated, kind of like an anvil. And crazy enough, there's sort of an epidemic rise of this around the world, and they're not really knowing what's causing it. That's another whole story. But
they that don't was the situation. That's what she had.
That's what it is. And in order to within the first year, they want to be able to do a surgery that releases the skull.
Oof, that's gotta hurt.
So they basically take the baby's scalp off and the skull, and then cut it down where it's grown irregularly.
Yeah.
And reshape it so that it would have, the head will grow into a more normal shaped head and solve the deformity as well as allow the skull to grow. So can you imagine giving your 3-month-old baby and wondering what is going to happen? So the parents know homeopathy works. They've used homeopathy for so many things that they absolutely wanted to incorporate homeopathy in
the
every
surgery.
facet. Right. So they have used me. They know this work that I do in physics, where we can tell how the energy of anything is going to interact with that person. So we can test foods or other drugs. So we wanted control of the baby would have to be given an antibiotic for surgery. We wanted to make sure the antibiotic wasn't accidentally something that was allergic to.
Right.
They wouldn't know that.
And when you say physics, testing with physics, you're meaning like muscle testing to see.
It's like a muscle test, but in fact, what I use is a pendulum, but it's like a muscle test so that you can see on the whole system how this product, drug, food, anything is going to interact, including a homeopathic medicine.
Just for clarification, if you're new to homeopathy, that muscle testing isn't specifically a homeopathic practice, but it's something Anna uses as part of her, she's a homeopath, and that's one of the tools she uses in addition to homeopathy. And so, yeah, if my kid was going to go through surgery, I'd want you involved. I'd want you involved on helping us identify the best, even like what's it called when you go to sleep for the surgery, the anesthesia. I mean, all of those things you want as much information as you can get. And doctors aren't going to muscle test you.
Well, they don't. I mean, they've heard of it, but that was something. So we've kind of got out of line. I would like to go back to full disclosure for a moment, just like I would in my practice.
Right.
So when someone comes to my practice, I am not an average. I don't take anyone walking in with an acute problem. My practice was really part of a dissertation and a long-term research project that would examine how physics and homeopathy come together. So I'm very...
That's like your angle. That's your shtick. Yeah.
Well, it's really, I need people who are going to follow how we're doing this, because I'm looking at long-term, did their body reverse in a systematic way that homeopathy would say? How does this work with physics? Can we have predictability? Were the studies of homeopathy good information from a physics perspective? And that's all become really, I started this in 2003. In 2010, Luc Montagnier, the virologist that won the Nobel Prize for finding the AIDS virus, began to investigate homeopathy, taking another researcher from the late 90s, Bonveniste, who had found that homeopathic doses of histamine caused the same kinds of reaction as natural histamine in the body. But Bonveniste had been just blasted in the scientific community, so it took years before another highly credible scientist at the end of his career,
like Luc Montagnier.
Exactly. And so they created these much tighter controlled cases, and he came back and has published and spoke in front of the homeopathic community saying, I'm not going to validate for how you homeopaths are actually using your medicine, but we know homeopathic medicines are not placebo.
Yes, that's right.
And we know
very exciting.
And we know that the way they're working must be through resonance. And I went, yes, this is what I've been studying, is this resonance phenomena. So my clients really come in, we're working on chronic problems over a long period. Really in a research.
Did I lose you for a second? Anna, you look frozen all of a sudden.
Oh, I don't know. I can't tell that.
I don't know why. Anna, if you are there, I'm going to maybe take a break. Can you guys hear me still? Comment if you guys can still hear me. I'm going to move Anna into the lobby. Yeah, I think you guys can hear me. And what I'll do is we'll take a quick little break and we'll talk about this resonance. Okay, and it just moved me to the lobby. I don't know what's happening. That's crazy.
Okay. I see you,
Beth, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Sorry. Why are we having this trouble? Both are fine. You both are fine. So we're here. Oh, how strange. I love technical problems. This has actually never happened before to me. And I am going to see if I can figure this out. So for those of you guys who don't know what resonance is, I am the girl who actually, throughout my science classes, I wrote limericks about my lab partners, and that's how I passed a lot of my science classes, was by chatting with them. And anyways, I've kind of, through homeopathy, have become like reinvigorated by the science. And this term resonance has come up a lot when you learn about homeopathy and you kind of start going deep. And one of the things that I found is that if you get like a tuning fork, you get two tuning forks that are the same note, right? You have one tuning fork and the other one, and they're the same one. If you strike the first tuning fork and you don't do anything to this one, this tuning fork will start singing. And then this tuning fork will spontaneously start singing the same time that you struck the first one. It's because they both match the same frequencies, or they're the same note. And when you strike the first one, it will create resonance with the second one, and the second one will start singing simply by being near this other one, which is kind of the idea of like kills like. So I think that's really interesting. I'm going to try, I don't see anyone. I'm going to try and bring Anna back and see if we can hear her again. Anna, can you hear me?
Yes.
See, I can't hear Anna. And so if you guys can hear her, that's really annoying because I can't hear her. Let me tell her to log out and come back in on the same link. I really hope it works. So Anna, if you can hear me, close your browser and reopen. And come back in. Same thing with you, Beth, because I can't see either of you guys. Okay, so I guess they can hear me. I just can't see them. So isn't that lovely? So I actually did this. I went out and purchased a tuning fork, two of them. And okay, I see you again. Great. So I don't know if you've been hearing me blab, Anna. Okay, there you are. I don't know what happened. Everything just froze. And can
you hear me now?
Yes, I can. So
Oh, yay. So no,
you
your
heard me
resonance idea is quite good. Let me give another example that I find most people understand. And then I'm going to actually, in these advocacy stories, give a couple more examples.
Okay.
So resonance, as Paula was saying, if we had a frequency, that frequency interacting with something else of the same frequency will cause an amplification. That would be like how your constitutional remedy strengthens this and the coordination of your whole system. So another example of wave interference pattern and using frequencies with resonance, and resonance can either has two ways that things will interact. They're either going to strengthen something and be beneficial, or they're going to create a destructive interference pattern, still resonance,
right,
but destructive, causing a
not
collapse.
the one that you want.
Exactly. So go back to that song, and we've got noise going on in the background, and you can't hear the song. Have you ever tried wave cancellation headphones?
No, but I want to now.
Oh, you really do. So they've got these wonderful headphones Bose makes and other companies, and you turn it on, and what it's doing is it's aggregating all the background noise into a specific frequency. So now you have the frequency of your song, and you've got this amalgamated frequency that's causing the interruption. It will only interrupt the frequency and the waves, the sound waves of that song in the places that it interacts. It's either amplifying a wave or it's collapsing a wave, right?
Yeah,
so
and that's what we say, that the remedy is stimulating healing when it's the correct remedy. It's through these frequencies and these waves. And you heard how I did not pay attention in science class, and I'm really wishing I had.
So if we take these wave cancellation headphones, if this is the song and now it's collapsed, and if we take the same frequency that's collapsing it, it'll restore where the wave was interrupted.
Injecting more energy, the right energy in there.
Like cures like. It has to be the same frequency as what's creating the interruption will now restore the interference patterns, like cures like. So
I've got to get back to Beth in a second, but maybe wrap up the surgery story or wrap up.
So the surgery story. We were here in this story advocating for yourself. Here's this couple who know they want to use homeopathy, and they have this incredibly intense surgery on their newborn. We interviewed surgeons, and instead of quietly using a remedy that we would have to sneak, we came out and said, we have lengthy experience with homeopathy and know that it works. I told the surgeons that it was in California as well. With our Health Freedom Act, I can practice homeopathy as an independent specialist. They wanted to know if I was an MD, because as an MD, I couldn't do this. Was I a naturopath? I couldn't do it. No, our safe harbor laws let me use homeopathy as a specialist. And as a specialist, I've worked on many surgical teams, from knee replacements, nose repairs, cosmetic surgery, open heart surgery. I had never done that surgery. I said, but I watch my clients come through those surgeries with minimal antibiotic use, with no pain medication, and a healing curve that's usually about 70% or so faster. Very little bruising. And he looked at me like, you're crazy.
Yeah, right.
Two surgeons said, if you're using it, they wouldn't do the surgery.
Okay, so you had to find the right surgeon.
One guy audaciously went, after it's all done, we can use grandma's medicine. That really didn't win any favors with us. But we then
move along. We'll find someone else. Yeah,
that's right. Don't be hesitant. So then we found the surgeon who said, worked at Children's Hospital. So if I was encouraging any of you with a problem, go to Children's Hospital. He said, our hospitals believe in respecting either cultural interests or different uses of medicine, and we will work with you. And then he looked at us and he said, tell me about what you would do, what what you want to do in participating, both pre and post surgically. And I told him. Then he looked at the couple and he said, I want to tell you, I have no experience with homeopathy. You can use it, but I won't be held accountable for the outcome.
That's right.
And we said, that's fine.
Fair enough.
And
yeah.
he said, look, you need to know that usually the child will have a face that will be swollen, eyes shut, black and blue, that will last about 3 days. We keep the child on steroids, an antibiotic, and morphine for the first 3 days. And then taper off to opiates, and then you'll be given codeine to use for pain management for the following year. My clients just looked at that and were mortified. And I looked at them and I said, I believe we can successfully use homeopathy to avert that drug use. But you need to know that if I can't control the pain, then we would look at using some small amount as needed, and we would work together. And
okay, I'm going to pause you right there. I'm going to pause you because I want to leave it on a cliffhanger. I need to get Beth here. Oh, Beth just disappeared. I was trying to get Beth here to have her do her she wants to talk about why she joined the Bear Pack, and I thought maybe like do a little cliffhanger, but she just disappeared.
Okay,
Beth, come back.
When she comes back.
When she comes back, I'm going to very rudely. Oh, wait. She might be coming. She might be here. I see her little thing pop up. So, yep, she is. I'm going to move you down and I'm going to bring Beth on, and then we'll hear the other side of the story. I love this story. Hi, Beth. I'm so sorry that we had some technical difficulties. It's so great that you're still here. She is in her car taking a break from work. Thank you for being here. Tell us about joining the Bear Pack. Why is it so important? And remember, guys, if you just joined us, Anna is donating $25 for everybody, for each new Bear Pack sign up. Bear Pack is someone that donates $25 or more a month to Homeopathy Choice.
Hi, Paula. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So I just love homeopathy. And I truly believe that we need to have our freedom of choice. And I'm not a big fan of the FDA because I've seen some of the other decisions that they've made. And I think it's because we don't have enough people standing up for our right to choose. And then someone will make that choice for you. I don't have a lot of time. So I know that my contributions, even though small, do add up. You know, the sum of all things is really exponential, not necessarily like 1 + 1 = 2, but more like 2 squared = 4.
Yeah, that's right.
And having people like Jim Turner and Kurt and you and Lauren, all of these people have so much to bring to the table. And so I give a little bit of time, but I think it was really important. If I could give more every month in the Bear Pack, I would. It's just that important.
It is. Well, tell us, do you have a minute to tell us a quick positive story with homeopathy, or do you need to run off? And if you have to, that's okay.
No, I'm going to make it work. So the first time that I became familiar with homeopathy was my son was about 9, and he had poison ivy. And we had already been through some steroid creams before in the past, before I knew about homeopathy, and we didn't like how it made him feel.
Right.
So when he told me about the rash, it was a Friday, and doctor's office wasn't open on weekends, and so I said, hey, I have an idea. I saw this product on the health food store for poison ivy. I want to try that, but just in case, let's go to the doctor, let's get a diagnosis, let's have a prescription in hand. Just in case.
Sure, then options are good.
At 9, he goes, Mom, it's really, really itchy. And I said, okay, but let's just try this first because we can get the prescription a little later. So he was okay. And before we even got in the car, I opened up the package and put the little dissolvable pellets in his mouth. And within 10 minutes, he's like, I feel better. My son is now 20, and that is what he uses for poison ivy.
I love that.
So,
and that's what we want.
Yes.
The freedom to have options. That's what we want.
Yeah, and I did get that prescription filled, and I eventually threw it out because it expired. Never opened it.
Love it.
And then I have a really important story. This is about 18 months ago that happened to me personally. I've only been, I don't really get sick very often, and I use homeopathy for the most of it, and I got like a head cold, and I was like, treating it, but it wasn't resolving. And within about a week, it settled in my chest, and I just couldn't shake it. And I never go to the hospital, but I said to my husband, we need to go to the hospital. And he knew that it was bad. And we get to the hospital. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was 1 a.m. My blood oxygen level was down to like 80%. And they immediately admitted me. And
it's always at 1 a.m., isn't it? It's always at 1 a.m.
Yeah, I was really scared. So they diagnosed me with pneumonia. Okay. And the one doctor had said, we don't understand how you could be here. You don't even have a medical record with us, except for when you gave birth to your children. So, yeah, and my family was rightfully scared because they're just like, Mom never gets sick. Now she's in the hospital. And I kind of lost my power and my voice to speak to, like, oh, my gosh, I don't want the antibiotic. I don't want that, and I don't want this. But I did manage to get out of the hospital in 24 hours.
Okay.
Which was pretty amazing. That was pretty amazing. And I had resolved, I said I had a reaction to the drugs. I used homeopathy to resolve that. I took time to get better and to, get healthy again. And I wanted to know to myself, what do I need to do to prepare for the eventuality that I would get pneumonia again?
Right. And so you do your homework.
I did my homework. I bought all the remedies. I had them in place. And don't you know, 3 months later, I was around my grandson who had a cold, and I got pneumonia again.
Mm-hmm. Of course you did.
This time, I didn't, because I never recovered from it.
Right.
I wasn't healed. I used my homeopathy. I only missed a few days from work, and I became stronger. 14 months later go by, so that now we're into January of last month. I got a cold, and using homeopathy in 4 days, I'm good.
And did it ever get to your chest this time?
Nope.
And that's exactly the progression we see with homeopathy.
Yep.
This is why we try and use it first. When you use a conventional drug, the chances of you getting it again, reoccurring, getting worse, it increases. And with homeopathy, you get the opposite. You get less likelihood and improvement.
I am convinced that if I get it again, I'm going to bounce back faster. So I know what remedies to use. But when I did get sick, I was cautious. I had everything ready. So in January came around, I said, I got a cold. I didn't start with the pneumonia. I started with the cold remedies. And within 4 days, the virus was completely interrupted, and I was fine. Fantastic. Never got, and so that's the power of homeopathy. And it is important that we win. And I have to believe that we are going to win. Yeah. We need the freedom to have this choice. It doesn't matter if anyone in my family chooses not to use it, and all they want to do is go to the doctor. That is their choice. But I want it to be my choice. So you have options, and we need options.
That's right, especially in this world today. Beth, you're an inspiration. I love your story. You were very succinct and just said all of the right things. Is there anything else you want to say in closing before you hustle off to work?
No, I am so happy to be a part of this movement. I will see you in DC. I will get a chance to meet you in person, so I'm really excited about that.
I hope to meet Anna too.
Yes, and time is not my friend, but I am really going to try hard to make time and make those appointments, and I'm going to be on the ready. So thank you for having me today, and I look forward. And I want to encourage everybody, please, 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 even if you can't be a full Bear Pack member, we need all of your help, no matter what. Time, I don't care if it's $5. We need you, and you can just be a part of a really, really, one of the most important movements that are going on today.
Yep, that's right.
So,
I love it.
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much, Beth. We'll see you later.
Thank you. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
She's lovely. Thank you, Beth, for being here. And, it's just, it's just so exciting, I think, to be part of such an amazing, amazing movement of people who are wanting to do this important advocacy work. So again, reminder, you guys, those of you who are just arriving, Anna is going to donate an extra $25 for every single new member of the Bear Pack, starting, at the beginning of this interview until 24 hours from now. So that's really, really quite generous of her. And Beth, for some reason, I can't move you down off the lobby. It's like not working. I know it. Okay, she's going to close it. All right, and then I'll move Anna up if this button works, but I don't know why I can't get rid of Beth's screen. It's like, well, you guys can't see her, but oh dear. Now Anna's not moving up. I cannot believe this. It is so frustrating. Anna, it won't let me. Of course, I've never had any of these problems before, and I'm going to have them now. Oh, okay. Split screen. Yes, you're here. Yes.
Oh, I almost just disconnected and tried coming back in again.
Yes. Okay. I'm not touching any more buttons. So we left off on that wonderful cliffhanger. I just want to tell you one more time just how thankful, well, not one more time, but again, how thankful I am for you being willing to donate $25 per new Bear Pack member. That's really kind of you.
Oh, well, I'm really proud and excited for everyone who joins. So,
what did you think of Beth? What did you think of her? She's great.
I'm going to tag on her story because we kind of got off track a lot. And I had a poison ivy story that was my first advocating for myself. Mm-hmm. So we'll circle back to it in a minute.
Okay,
should we finish the one?
Yeah, let's do. I'm on. So doctor said that this baby would need all of these drugs, and you got involved and you guys worked on the case. So what happened?
So because these parents said, this is my homeopath, we use homeopathy and trust it. We want homeopathy used in our child's surgery. And because I didn't have the encumbrance of laws that would otherwise prohibit my doing so, I'm able to work on teams like that where we can incorporate homeopathy for these really incredible outcomes. So what happened? Well, the physician gave me the right to lead pre-op to take a look at how did that anesthesia that would be used. We had a choice of a couple. And they're starting to find that the anesthesia used on young children starts to show brain issues, and they're not discovering them usually until the child is much older. So I've had problems with anesthesias with different children. So the anesthesiologist worked with us and we tested energetically to find one that didn't present what I could tell was something I could correct for in that anesthesia. We looked at antibiotics that weren't going to be something that she was allergic to right off the bat. We had an action plan for post-surgery. We would use arnica before and immediately after. And I would be incorporated into everything that was done in the leading of any medication delivered post-surgically.
And they had to include you because of this law and because of the demands of the parents. I love that.
Because of the demands of the parents.
Okay, so which states are safe harbor right now? We have California. I know you held up your map, but can you?
I can list them off. So we have Idaho, California, Arizona, Rhode Island, New Mexico, Minnesota, Louisiana, and Colorado. So there are only 9. There are 10 states that have a safe harbor law, but one of them has not specifically included homeopathy, and that was challenged. So they're working on it. Now, what's exciting is that this year, and I have to believe that all of this consumer activism and our conversations about homeopathy, for the first time in several years, we have 5 states putting in bills, safe harbor bills currently.
Great.
And in fact, if you live in one of these states, if you'll connect me, Paula, they really want consumers on that steering committee. And consumers reaching out to their state legislators can make all the difference in those bills passing. So the 5 states that are currently we have 10, 9, we've got 5 states that are introducing bills. Where did I put that? Oh, well, I don't have it on the list.
We'll post it on the show notes later. Don't worry about it.
Perfect.
We'll include it.
So
And if you guys are
so that's
wanting a
exciting.
copy of that map, we'll send a copy of the map on the show notes. Sign up for our email at homeopathychoice.org and we'll get you the show notes. And then, of course, Bear Pack members will put it in the Bear Pack area. So, I mean, I'm dying to know, like, how did the surgery go for this baby? What happened?
It was stunning. We used arnica, a 10M, right before surgery and right after surgery.
Mm-hmm.
There was never any swelling of her face that had bruising. The face swelled. Her eyes closed for all of about 5 minutes, that they were both closed at one time during that night. The surgery took place in the evening, finishing at about 8 p.m. By the next day, we were looking at how the antibiotic and the steroid had now gone from neutral to testing negatively.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to say, we no longer want to use them. Now, of course, this shot out alarm, and the head of medicine in Children's Hospital came into the room to have a conversation about it. And again, I explained that as the homeopath, and then my work in physics, I explained to her how homeopathy works on this principle of likes treats like. And that we're looking at, with this testing, wave interference patterns. And I use a remedy that is able to correct an interference that's occurring for this child.
Mm-hmm.
So by this point, we were past the trauma. They were stunned. There was no black and blue. The baby was able to nurse. Her eyes were open. And I said, this testing of this antibiotic shows it's negative. We want to first uphold a Hippocratic oath and first do no harm. Let's remove it. I said, you're taking blood work as well and monitoring. I'd like to know immediately if there's any alarm that we would have any indication for an antibiotic use or even need for a steroid. And the physician looked at the reports that were coming back on the blood work being taken, and she said, well, actually, there isn't any.
Well, exactly, because you've never had a baby do so well after the surgery. So maybe you don't need to follow the protocol that you always do for everybody else, because this is the first time you've ever had someone do so well.
Yep. So we were allowed to use remedies as needed. So they were asking me, what's the protocol? What time am I giving each thing? And I said, well, homeopathy puts me in the center. We really follow what's happening for the individual at that time. It's not a protocol given at specific times. So we were watching, and I said, she stayed behind, and we paid attention to, here are the symptoms. And I was able to show her the research we had, why this particular medicine of Lidum was being used for the bruising or the bleeding that had taken place from the surgery, even though we didn't see any bruises.
Right.
And we were using Symphytum, and it would take the pain away just like that, as the bone was already going into healing. Well, it was so stunning. And as I gave her these examples, struggling a bit with it, I went back to the physics side. And I said, look, you understand that everything is energy, and everything has energy interacting. You use the technology when you make a CT scan. And she said, absolutely, or even an X-ray. So we're doing the same thing at looking at wave interference patterns, but far more data that's exhibited in the patient's entire experience. And she went, that's really fascinating. So they kept staying to watch. And by the end, at day 2, as the physicians were coming to check on her, this little baby was greeting them with her hands clapping and smiles. Gosh. They couldn't believe it. The end of the afternoon, the buzz had been so big that the head of neurology, who was the neurologist on the team, came in and he said, we've never seen one of these surgeries and a child recover this way. Never. And I said, well, so
do they ask you to join the hospital's board?
Wouldn't you think? Yeah, no, yes. That's not happening yet. But nonetheless, it was so stunning that I said, look, I don't see any reason. We're supposed to be here for 10 days. It's now been
48 hours.
48 hours, not even. And I said, there's nothing being done. And I said, as we both know, hospitals are a great place to catch other things.
Yeah, petri dishes.
We'd really prefer to go home. And he said, I agree. If you're comfortable, I'd get out of here too.
Yeah.
And that was it. We were signed out of the hospital, and they've continued to follow her over the next few days. But it was stunning. As we left, all the residents, the nurses, the interns, the head of medicine, we had a group of about 20 people who came in the room and asked me to describe what I was doing with homeopathy, as well as the resonance testing that could produce such an incredible outcome.
Well, there's a few things I'm learning from this, like when you go to a doctor and you go to a hospital, especially in a situation like this, like an emergency situation, you don't get to interview your doctor ahead of time and pick someone that's going to work with you. But, especially when you have a planned surgery, picking your doctor is the right thing to do. And then I think a lot of times we kind of hide homeopathy. Like when I go to a doctor and they prescribe my kid an antibiotic, I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. And I don't tell them that I'm going to try something else first. But, there's really an advocacy value in being into really encouraging collaboration, discussion, and opportunity for growth. That's really important.
Well, it's important for our physicians. They're not taught anything about homeopathy. They're not taught anything about philosophy on a medicine. So tagging off of Beth's poison ivy story, poison ivy played an incredibly big role in my health. I had nearly died from poison ivy as a child. Crazy. I was like all over internally as well.
I didn't know it could get that bad. Oh, internally.
And
oh my gosh.
I was finally hospitalized, and the care was large doses of steroids. Yeah. Right? And then it would take a few months for those steroids to wear off, and I would break out with poison ivy again. And my parents were really upset. Can't you learn to stay out of it, et cetera, et cetera? And I'd go get more steroids. The third time that was done, within the week of being given those steroids, my vision went from 2015 to 2200, which was legally blind.
Okay. Wow.
So that amount of suppression by steroids, I lost my vision. Wow. And at the time when I was discovering homeopathy and this health safe harbor laws were instituted in California, this professor from the physics department, very intrigued with the research I wanted to do, decided to run this experimental clinic, and I agreed to be a patient. That was my first experience with homeopathy. What was happening? I began to break out in poison ivy and poison oak all over my body, and I hadn't been exposed to it.
Interesting. And how many years had it been since you'd had a poison ivy?
I'd been given a remedy that these homeopaths, 15 homeopaths collaborated, and then they used this resonance testing to find a remedy. And my eyes had been so aggravated. They were red as could be, looking like I had conjunctivitis, couldn't see. They'd tried all these frequency broadcasts from machines. Nothing worked. And they gave a remedy, and it worked overnight.
Wow.
It worked so fast that I was really skeptical. That was just coincidence. I really didn't believe
so you had poison ivy rashes, but was it like terrible and horrible?
First, I had this horrible conjunctivitis going on in my eyes at the time they gave me the first remedy. And that conjunctivitis aspect went away.
Okay.
But I kept thinking, I wasn't really believing it was the that little bit of remedy. Are you kidding? I wasn't quite sure I bought off on this idea. So the week went by and things were fine. And suddenly I broke out with poison ivy and oak everywhere. And I hadn't been exposed. So they were saying, well, when was the last time? I said, well, the last time was actually about a year ago. I had been in Yosemite. And wind blew across this area where there was poison ivy and oak. And that's all it would take for me to catch it.
Sensitive.
It's the dust off of it. And that's how
pollen.
So right away, I'd had it all over, went and got a cortisone shot. I didn't know any better. No one was telling me that cortisone was really bad. And nobody had connected the cortisone to my eyesight. Makes you wonder how that was contributing to this problem I even had. So here we go. We get poison ivy and oak, they again come back with the first remedy from Roost Talks from poison ivy. And wow, that poison ivy that would usually take a good 2 to 3 weeks to heal completely was completely dried and healed in about 5 days.
Wow.
Wow. That was incredible. I couldn't believe it. And then back to this more central remedy. The heck of it was the following week I broke out in it again.
And was it like miserable and painful and horrible, or was
it was like blisters everywhere.
Oh, no,
and
because hopefully it usually isn't that bad when like old symptoms are getting uprooted.
Oh, no. It was beyond horrid. And my husband was going, I don't believe this homeopathy stuff. You need to go to the dermatologist. This looks worse than any poison ivy I've ever seen.
Right.
You might have some crazy disease. And I went,
Right.
okay, fine. I'm going to the dermatologist. And at this point, it was breaking out on my face. Literally in a 60-second period, you could feel this heat. And then there were blisters and dripping all over my face. I could use the remedy and it would stop it, but it would take the next week by the time the skin would totally heal. So I walk into this dermatologist's office and I say, I'm not going to tell you anything about what I think. I want you to make a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And he said, honey, I don't need to run any lab work. You have positively the worst case of combined poison ivy and oak I have ever seen. What did you do? Did you just rub your face in it? And I laughed and I said, in fact, this has been going on for weeks. It started all over my body, but it's now focusing only on my face. And in fact, I'm going to tell you a story. As a 5-year-old child, I had picked a big bouquet. It was lots of poison ivy, and I had rubbed it all over my face. That's where it had started so badly. And I said, I've been using homeopathy. And when I used this remedy and I showed it to him, I said, this will be all healed in a week. And I said, homeopaths say that your body holds this information and it's going to reverse this state. It started out all over, but it seems to be now focused only where I first contracted it.
Interesting.
And
so
he sat back.
And why should that not be scary for someone? Okay.
He sat back, Paula, and crossed his arms. And he said, Anna, that's amazing. What you've just described is well documented in the old books of dermatology and medicine. But we never see that kind of healing progression today. And he goes, and you may be right. The only thing I would have to offer you is steroids. The only thing I would have to offer you is steroids. And he goes, maybe an antibiotic cream because you are so susceptible to every other super co-infection, especially coming in my office today. It's the worst place you could be. But he followed my case over the next number of weeks in awe that not only did the poison ivy end, it went down, down, down and stopped. But when it did, my vision with my contact lenses had now gotten to the place where I was legally blind with my contact lenses. And as that poison ivy healed, my vision went back over 20 years of recovery.
Wow. So tell me,
it was crazy.
You were under the care of a homeopath. I mean, this is not like you running around doing this by yourself. I mean, we shouldn't be afraid of the story.
This was me as a student with experienced homeopaths that were teaching at that point.
Is that typical to have that serious of a, like uprooting experience of uprooting old things that had been suppressed? Because I've never thankfully seen it that bad. And I think it's an amazing story, but it's a little scary.
Well, okay. So 20 years of doing this and really working through this realm with physics, I can say truly, when you have the right remedies, people will go through a reversal of symptoms. Are they always that bad? No. That one was really bad, but I had poison ivy very seriously, and it had been suppressed multiple times.
Yours had been.
So this, and then it would also speak to yet a deeper underlying sensitivity. So the seriousness of it is something where you would go unlike Beth, that, great, if you had homeopathy right from the bat
Yeah,
off the
lucky
top of her
duck.
son,
Mhm.
right? Then he
Mhm.
never would have had steroids, creating this suppression that was more deeply interrupting this field of my system.
And two
So it took
typical remedies
correcting
for
the interruption and
Mhm.
amplifying my field to then create this continuing healing cycle.
And two typical remedies for poison ivy, if you happen to run into it on an acute level, is anacardium, right? And rhus tox, maybe. Those are, I hear those tend to be the two most common ones.
Those are the two most common. In almost all of my clients, rhus tox or rhus veneta, which is another
Veneta.
from
Wait, I'm going to write
poison
that down.
elder.
Tox.
I find those two much more frequently than I do the anticardium.
Is that right? Veneta? Did I spell it right?
Veneta. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Which comes from poison elder. So those two forms are what I see with clients quite specifically. But if you catch it and you don't stop the suppression, but when you start suppressing something with steroids, you will start to see now chronic disease that's characteristic of your constitution. You are collapsing your system's self-organizing ability. So it comes back to that self-advocating. By educating that dermatologist, I've run into him from time to time, and he says, you really taught me a lot. I'm very hesitant. And he's started to recommend, I don't do it. I'm not a homeopath, but you can try this first. Yes. And he doesn't like suppressing poison ivy, he tells me now.
That's an amazing thing. I know someone who's an OBGYN, and she refers out to a homeopath. I mean, that's what we want, right? That's where we want to get to because I think sometimes we demonize doctors. And I think, there are some out there that are pretty aggressive with their drugs, but I think in general, doctors, if you can just get them in the right place, a lot of them would want to work collaboratively with homeopathy. And so someone was asking me, I have a couple of questions, and then I want to ask you, well, first then I have another question for you, but was this written up in a scientific paper case study, the story about basically the brain surgery or the skull surgery? Did you have a chance yet to submit it or anything? Because you should.
I have not.
Totally
I should. I really should.
Really should. Yes.
There's even more to that story, but we're not going to go there on this conversation. But there was
And
another really amazing story. Go ahead.
Well, there's just another question. How do you collaborate with doctors when the threat of CPS is looming? And I want to talk to you about that because
that's another good story.
Let's do that. Yeah, let's talk about that, because not all states have safe harbors. Like I'm shocked that Texas doesn't have it, because we need to get on that, Texas. But what about CPS? What about I'm in an emergency and I had to go to the hospital and I think they're throwing superfluous drugs at my kid that they don't need. Like my sister-in-law's baby had the flu and they wanted to give her what's the drug that they give? The one that's not good. That's banned in Japan. I keep trying to say influenzainum, but that is not it. That's homeopathic. What's the drug that they give for the flu? One of you guys will know. Type it in the comments. But anyways, and she declined, and it was this whole thing because she's like, that only reduces the symptoms of the flu if you give it in the first 24 hours, Tamiflu. And we're past the first 24 hours, and it only reduces it by a few days. It doesn't even make the flu go away.
This is where you definitely want a good relationship with a professional homeopath.
Okay.
If you're there and you're self-advocating and you're now in a hospital setting, right? That's a little different than I've walked into my physician and I say, look, before I start with this medication that has these potential side effects, I've got a window of opportunity. My risk analysis, I want to try this medication. I've researched it, or my homeopath has advised it. Then you can say to him, I believe in that transparency. If it doesn't work, if I can't do this, then I know I'm going to come to this. And if it does work, I'd like to tell you about it. Being able to be open about that is really important. And if you can't have that amount of respect and trust in the work you're doing with your physician, then find another physician.
Right.
So, but when it gets to a hospital setting, what do you do? Right. Oh my goodness. So here I am working with a client that's in Virginia. Virginia doesn't have safe harbor laws.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a homeopath working with this family from California. And I couldn't even be in this hospital setting at the time.
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to work? One, I'm in California where I have this right to be a specialist independently. I'm not going to be penalized. Two, my client says, we use homeopathy as our primary medicine. I want my homeopath to be involved in every decision made.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not in town and available, but we can put her on with a FaceTime call. It works perfectly. Have them just do a Zoom, do a FaceTime call. This is completely legitimate. When they ask, what are your credentials? I am a homeopathic specialist. I'm certified with this. I'm a part of NASH, which is the Society of Homeopaths. I don't work under any other umbrella that I could be attacked if that physician didn't like what I was doing. So great. Now it establishes that I have this right independently. So we had the hospital suddenly freaking these parents out, saying, if you don't do this emergency liver surgery on your infant, we're calling child protection services. It will be your gross negligence, etc. When I had put together all of this research to show that this surgery was wrong. Now I'm in a panic going, how am I going to advocate for them? They really were firm they wanted me in place, but nobody was doing anything about it. So I called a good friend who ran Temple City Healthcare Center and Research. It's their Frontier Sciences Center. And he had been an attorney for many naturopathic alternative practitioners. And I said, look, here's my problem. His wife is also a nurse. I laid out the medical case. I laid out my argument for what I was doing. And I said, we're being bulldozed by this hospital to call child protection services. And then they bulldozed further, saying that they would call in a patient advocate that would work on behalf of this child and the removal from them as negligent parents.
Oh my gosh, that's like my worst nightmare. Yes.
It was horrible. Here was the advice I was given, and it worked. March back in there as the parent and say, absolutely, I want you to call the patient advocate in now. We are going to have that patient conversation with the patient advocate before we do anything further. Why did that work? The patient advocate is not there for them to abuse or bully you. In every state, I was told by this attorney, the patient's choice rules and must be adhered to.
But even if the patient is a child and it's not an adult?
Something went wrong, Paula. I can't see anything. Can you see me? I'll keep talking.
I can hear you just fine, and we can see you.
Okay, my screen just went completely black.
I know the
feeling. This attorney said, absolutely not. The patient advocate, the patient's rights must be observed. Have the patient call in the advocate team at the hospital.
It happened again. Oh no. What a pain in the neck. Anna, if you can hear me, you look frozen to me, and I can't hear you, and I can't do the interview if you're frozen. So close your browser window, reopen it, and then come back in. And I am so sorry that I don't know why it's happening again, but we're going to get through this interview come hell or high water. Close your browser and reopen and come back. Okay, she did freeze. Okay, come back in. Gosh darn it. So I have an interesting story that I was going to, tell Anna, and it's this. So calling a health patient advocate is really someone that's there to kind of be on your side, not on the doctor's side. And so I had a miscarriage once, and I did hemorrhage. I wasn't very far along. I was like 9 or 10 weeks, and I went to the hospital, and they basically, I had this, kind of aggressive pelvic exam from this OBGYN. She came in, she looked tired, she looked exhausted. She was not my doctor. My doctor was like on her way, but it was the middle of the night kind of a thing, of course. And she did this exam that was like really painful. And she was pretty aggressive about it. And I remember screaming, like while she did this exam, I was screaming for her to stop. And she was just not gentle about it all. It was really a sad situation for me, but also like painful that she would examine me so aggressively because I had hemorrhage. And so she was, just kind of checking me out. And after it was over, she said, "You need antibiotics," And I said, "Wait, whoa, slow down. Last time I've had antibiotics, I had really bad reaction to them and my doctor said that this is similar to, it was like a broad spectrum where a lot of antibiotics come from." And I said, "No, we need to talk about this. Where's the infection?" And we had this whole conversation where she couldn't prove that I had any sort of infection. I had a miscarriage, yes. My cervix was tender, yes, but that didn't mean that I had an infection. Maybe my cervix was tender because I had a miscarriage, right? And it was a really, really scary thing. And Anna, if you can hear me, do close your browser window and come back in. I'm so sorry. I might just call her and put her on speaker if worse comes to worse. But after it was all over, I said to my doctor, I said, "Look, my white blood cell count was normal, but when I came in, when you guys tested my blood to see what type of blood type I was, yes, there's pain, but there's no, when you touch, there's pain, but that doesn't mean I have an infection." I said, "Oh, good, you're back." I'm telling them the story of my miscarriage. I'm putting you back in the lobby. Here you are, Anna. Sorry, I don't know. I'm so sorry.
I don't know.
I told them all these things, and I said, "You haven't convinced me there's an infection." And this doctor turned to the nurse and she says, "Don't call me back here again for her." And she left. And this is the on-call doctor. And, later when I was in my hospital, in my room, recovering because I had lost 2 units of blood, I said, I want to talk to someone. I didn't like what happened. And I was like, I don't want to like sue her or like ruin her life or anything, but she needs to know that that was not appropriate. And they brought a patient advocate in. And then she took down my report. She took it very seriously because that's her job. And she said that she would communicate it with the doctor. And I followed up with her afterwards, and she left me her business card. And so, that was really, I probably could have called her in, I think, right then, and maybe gotten that doctor to be less aggressive in trying to push this. And then my OBGYN gets there because she's great, an hour or two later. And she was like, "Yeah, I'm glad you didn't take that because you don't have an infection and you didn't need those antibiotics." And I had someone of sound, rational mind there. But when you're feeling bullied, I love that this is a great tip. We can call a health patient advocate.
Yeah. So, when am I in or on or?
Everything's good.
Okay, good. I don't know. Yeah. So definitely using that patient advocate. And if you're homeopath, if you have a homeopath that can't be present with you at the moment, don't think that you can't put them on. The use of technology today, like we're doing this call or a Zoom or a FaceTime call, it works. Put them on, have them on your team and say, I really want to weigh my alternatives. Mm-hmm. And I'd like my homeopath to be a part of the solution.
And this health patient advocate isn't specific to a health freedom state. This is for everyone, throughout the United States. And I think that's really, really empowering and very helpful. So Anna, we've been on for an hour and 20 minutes. Oh, that's great. I know, that's great though. I think everyone's really loving this. No, we're chatty, but I'm just getting so many comments. We have 134 comments on this thread and they're really, really liking it. So, in closing, is there anything you want? And guys, if you want the show notes, make sure to sign up for our email on homeopathychoice.org. And remember that Anna is donating $25 for every person who joins a bear pack between the air of the show and 24 hours from now, which is really sweet. And we're going to do a raffle. We're going to do all our raffles at the end of the series on Friday. And she's going to raffle off a book to one person, A Vital Force. It's about the women in American homeopathy. And then we're giving you guys a Coco and Camille little remedy baggie, EMF bag. So in closing, Anna.
Hey, I'm with you there, and I can't wait to meet so many of you in Washington, D.C. I'll be there with you as well. And intention is set. This is going to get resolved. And our next big issue is going to be making sure that we all have access to homeopathic specialists in every state. And I'll be with you on that one as well.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Anna, for being here. You're wonderful. Thanks for taking the technical issues in stride. And I just loved your stories. They're fantastic. And you're just a gift to us. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. So, what I want to just close up with, you guys, is please join the Bear Pack. It's $25 a month. And if you can't do $25 a month and you have to do less, that's okay. If you can only do a one-time donation, that's okay too. We are so thankful for you guys being here. I love hearing from Anna and her amazing stories. I'm so thankful also for Beth, who took time off of work. You know, everybody in the Bear Pack it's not an easy thing. It's a sacrifice for their families. They're getting rid of a subscription service that they had to be able to afford the Bear Pack. We really need to get 80, hopefully 100 new Bear Pack members, because as this advocacy work gains strength, the snowball gets bigger, and we need a war chest to be able to, take on the issues that we're trying to take on. So we really need you to step up. And this is a really generous offer from Anna. For everyone who joins the Bear Pack is going to get, she's going to donate an extra $25 in the next 24 hours. And again, we've extended our DC deadline. If you want to come to DC, you can register by Saturday. That's what we're going to do. We've extended the deadline because we've got a bunch of emails of people wanting to attend. Also, if you're not coming to DC, we only have about 40 people registered to help from home. We really need you guys to register to help from home. It's totally free. It's right there on our website. Actually, I'll give you guys the link here in a second. But we really need you guys to find your courage. Now is a time for courage. I know that you all love homeopathy. Homeopathy is important to you. We want the freedom to choose this wonderful medicine. And Anna is just a great example of, what the future can look like if we have more, if we empower, our access to remedies right now, and, grow the practice of homeopathy and have more homeopaths in each state, highly qualified ones. And so I think that's, it's a fantastic time. And thank you so much for your support. Those of you who are members of the Bear Pack, thank you for your support. There's a few things also I want to mention, that we got 9,000 likes on our Facebook page. That's awesome. Thank you for that. And then also, just so you guys know, everyone who's signing up for the Bear Pack at any time during this webinar series is going to get a copy of Joette's book, History of Homeopathy, PDF version, and Sue Meyer's PDF version of Homeopathy for Mommies. Also, just so you guys know, if you've been in the Bear Pack, like if you're in the Bear Pack, let's say you signed up last month before the webinar series started, we did get permission to give you guys all retroactively copies of these PDF books. So be sure to go into the Bear Pack area and download your book. It's going to be there for a limited time. We're going to be putting it up. If it's not there yet, give us some time. We'll get it up before the end of the week. So all current Bear Pack members are going to get a copy of this PDF book, as well as future members. Okay, guys. You're awesome. Thank you for being here. Tomorrow, we're going to be hearing from Noel Peterson. He is a man and a dad, and he's going to be talking about dealing with dubious dads. But of course, we mean just the men in our lives, not just dads. It's just we like the alliteration. We like catchy statements there. So, all right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Very excited about it. And thanks for sticking with us. We'll see you guys later. Bye.